Link, a former guest of mine and someone who actually is a great role model of how to do M&A, is interviewing me today. So Link, thank you.
Thank you, Peter. It's an honor, and congratulations on the 50th episode of your podcast. So I'm always enjoyed chatting with you. If you're ready, I'm ready.
I'm ready.
I want to start at the beginning, where you grew up, kind of what it was like, what your parents did, sort of take me up through high school, kind of walk me through a little of that.
Sounds good. I got a lot of my ability to negotiate by growing up in the house that I did. I was a product of California, Central California, and San Francisco. I'd like to say I grew up with NPR and Rush Limbaugh on the radio, which meant I had to traverse two very polarizing family dynamics. I also grew up in a family business. So my parents started an aquarium maintenance business. So it was a blue collar job. It was my dad's passion, aquariums, and he worked in it when he was in high school and then built a business out of it. They graduated university as theater majors. They were in the local company. This is Good Company Players based in Fresno, California. And so again, just strange dynamic, entrepreneurish parents who are independent, but also creative arts folks. And so I was a kind of a natural byproduct of that. I have an older sister.
Okay.
Also kind of impacted me. And then if you've worked in a family business, you probably understand that then you showed up every single day and you were forced to clean. You were building things, you were helping out. So that led to a lot of my early development years, which is supporting them. And then bouncing back and forth from the coast to the Central Valley exposed me to quite a bit different lifestyle.
When did you start working in the family business? Was it formal, or was it just sort of more observing? And also during those formative years, did you ever have a part-time job outside the home, outside of the family business, or was it always?
Oh goodness, no. Parents that work in the company. So,
Yep.
uh, uh, well, I'll give this as context. My sister is got her master's in nursing, is a traveling nurse. She never wanted to work in the family business. I was the opposite. I was almost felt like I didn't have a choice. So I think it's hard. Probably 7, 8 early memories of trying to earn money. We had an office next to an Aikido studio that my parents put me in. They put me in a lot of different things to expose me at a young age. And I just remember being the person who cleaned up, supported my mom on filing, licking envelopes
Yep.
for invoices, going with her to the bank. Early memories, my mom ran the office and my dad was out in the field. And to get a hold of him, you had to page him. He had to go to a payphone and call in. And so it was just like I was in the mix at a young age. And I, didn't know any better. And we didn't come from much. And so like you just worked. Parents were always talking about work. The family financials and stresses were openly discussed constantly. It was, for me, very normal, although I found out that was not very normal.
No, it's a different path for sure. So you graduate high school, then you're going off to college. What did you think you want to do at that point?
Well, my parents did want me to support them in many respects on their ventures. I was very lucky. I was decent enough at basketball where I could have done something with it in college. But at the same time I was graduating, my parents started a nonprofit and they wanted to continue to have like a positive impact on their community. They wanted to educate children around the impact of climate change and the education of the reef and the waters in the Central Valley. They wanted to bring a lot of the education that's available on the coast, inland. And they said, well, we're doing this project. We'd love some help, which meant I had to not go play basketball collegiately and come back to Fresno and help them with that. So it was a big decision, but I was really obsessed with being a better business person. And I thought, like, what's the best playground then? Helping them with something that was so meaningful, but also kind of grassroots startup and build. And I was 17 when I graduated from high school. I also went on a trip right before that. So the gift that my aunt and uncle gave me, they're global travelers. My aunt was a writer for the Chronicle. She taught creative writing at Berkeley and were close friends with the founders of Lonely Planet. They said when I was probably like 4, when you graduate high school, if you graduate high school, because I was a crazy little kid, we'll take you anywhere in the world. Wow. So just graduate high school, we'll take you on anywhere in the world. And I said Japan. So they took me on a multi-week, I think it was about a little close to 2 weeks, to Tokyo. and really exposed me to the global travel scene. They're the San Francisco side of the family. So
Okay.
I think they were always trying to like get me a little bit more liberal. And so the important facet there was like global mindset. And so I was really lucky to take that next step and really get exposed to something that was much broader. And that led me to study international business and focus on kind of a global perspective, even though I was working in a local nonprofit, helping build this public aquarium and create these educational programs with my parents. Again, while I was in the undergrad, while I was doing my general education before I even started business school.
So the Japan trip was right out of high school, right?
I was
17, 18?
17. I was
Yeah.
17 and drinking. I didn't really drink in high school. I was pretty well raised and proper, also obsessed with sports. They exposed me to a whole different life. If you want to have a paradigm shift, make sure you drag your kids to a culture and a society that's vastly different than their upbringing. And it had a significant impact on me.
Been your first time traveling internationally?
Yeah,
Yeah.
most of my travel that I grew up when I grew up was around local. Like my parents took me to
Hmm.
Yosemite, they took me to the
Yep.
mountains, took me to the coast. I did a lot of camping, but all things that we could afford to do too.
Right. Right.
And I had family members who did things, but fairly independent parents. Didn't want to take a lot from other people. But this
Hmm.
was a gift that opened up my eyes. I mean, I studied international business in school. I studied Erasmus in Paris. I've created a global company and global investments. I have friends all over the world. And I put a lot of that success and a lot of that energy to that first trip.
It really speaks to the power of travel, especially at a young age to do that. Most people don't get that chance, so I'm glad to hear you did. So we're now into college, and tell me, I'm curious to know where the entrepreneurial bug went from there. Where did you build on that, and how did you get into the agency M&A world? Was that the right step, or was there some detours along the way?
It was interesting. So I knew I was headed to business school, and I started at the Craig School of Business, but I didn't quite believe I was going to be an entrepreneur because I just saw how hard it was for my parents and the other entrepreneurs in our family. Didn't I didn't want to volunteer for the same quality of life. And so my first thoughts were I was going to go get like a corporate job somewhere. I was going to go develop my skills and grow as a professional within some system. And so I did internships. I also worked for the engineering department. So I worked for my parents, plus the engineering department at the university and the IT department, because I was fairly technically savvy. Worked for the California Apple and Kiwi Commission doing marketing, and then worked for Johansson Transportations. I built their marketing department as an intern, and they all offered me jobs. I said no, because I just didn't feel like that was my job. So I was doing marketing, I was doing technology. It was kind of the early days of the emergence of social media. I had a blog, so I was always building websites. I built my first computer at 11 and was fortunate to have websites, and host them all on AngelFire and build them in the 90s. I did that all as just my own interests. So I was fairly tech savvy. I could code, I could work in command lines, I could do a lot of different things, but I was business. So I was just this mixed bag of like, what is Peter going to do? We don't know. But obviously, I had demonstrated some early stage competence and leadership, some strong skill sets across technology, and I had a significant audience through my aunt. So my aunt had Left Coast Writers, which is the predominant writing community, and they also had an event called the Travel Writers Conference. And right at like 2009, as social media was growing in prominence, they I don't know if you know this, like a bunch of travel writers are not young people. So they're not the most adept at technology.
Hmm.
So they asked me to come speak on the like early days of Twitter, Facebook, and there I was while in university speaking at conferences about how they should be using websites and blogging to extend travel writing, how they should be using social media. And this was this awakening time for them. And so I was very fortunate, again, to be given opportunities to be exposed to what then became a career because people started saying, well, okay, we get you're telling us to do these things. We don't know how to do it. Can we just pay you to do it? Can you make the website? Can you host us? Can you help us build the social media strategy around these tools where we think we just have to post photos of our food? Early days. And so I was wearing like shirts that said Twitter on it. I was speaking in the early days with similar thought leaders. The Gary Vee was coming up at the time. And I was just fortunate. I was this young kid just showing up at the emergence of social media being relevant. And I became an accidental entrepreneur because people were paying me. I was like, oh, this is pretty good. And I also got rejected. I graduated at a time when I was about to go into corporate finance and business. It was not a good time to go into corporate finance and business. So it led to me creating a company.
That was the birth of your first business.
Yeah, that was the accidental entrepreneurship, and I would like to say the disappointment and prideful moment of my parents, where I ended up being an entrepreneur and trying to figure it out on my own. I had 2 business partners. So just to get everyone up to speed, I traveled, I lived in Paris. I studied in the Paris international business and corporate finance. I came back to the US and joined a business fraternity that was Delta Sigma Pi. It's a co-ed business fraternity. And I became the president of that pledge class. And my wife was the vice president of that pledge class. And so we, along with one of the other brothers, started the agency in 2010 on Cinco de Mayo.
Wow.
And it was stemmed from people asking us to do for them what I was teaching people to do. I had a blog called Tricks Facebook with 1 million monthly visitors with a business partner of mine that was generating ad revenue. We knew a thing or two about blogging, about social media on our own. And then again, we were just telling people to do what we were doing. And then they said, could you just do it for us? And next thing you know, we're building websites and working with small businesses and then working with law firms, working with organizations, and kind of early entrepreneurship journey from there.
That is the kind of the e-myth, right? Of the accidental entrepreneur. You're good at your trade. People want to pay you. You just keep doing more of it. So that
you make a lot of mistakes, Link. You have no idea what you're doing. You take pride in the little things, like the first commercial office that you rent, the first time you design it, like all the little things in early entrepreneurship. You take a lot of pride in, but you're just figuring it out, and that's the valuable time that the 20s give you. Like you could just trial and error a lot of concepts. You don't have to make a lot of money. Hopefully, you can figure it out. You're not measuring things the same way. But I had a lot of agency. I had a lot of independent energy, and I also wanted to travel. So I wanted a lifestyle business. I wanted something that I was able to provide significant value with. I could be paid well for it. I could provide for my friends and the people we employed at an early stage. And then I wanted a global workforce. So we read, 4-hour work week. We were hiring in the Philippines early in our entrepreneur journey. And then we were traveling. So we, as a founders and as friends, would see the world and really enjoy life while trying to build a business.
It's the way to do it.
No kids. Like I didn't start as I didn't start young.
Yeah, I can relate to a lot of that. My first subcontractor was in the 90s, and that was a fellow stateside, but I've never met him. I talked to him on the phone a few times, so it was that globalization and being able to work remote and the lifestyle business that agencies can provide. So that was 2010. You started Cinco de Mayo, and we're still not doing M&A.
Well, this is the problem with the story. So I started an agency with a CFO.
Okay.
And would later be my wife, who was a double degree in international business and economics. None of us came from agency. None of us came from creative. And we originally said, how do we accelerate our professional development so we could go buy and invest in businesses? Because we all had this kind of finance background and education. And we early on focused on getting exposed to as many businesses as possible because we were investing money at the same time. So most of the money we made, we invested. And so we were trying to think, well, can we get behind the scenes on businesses? Can we potentially? We wanted to do M&A.
Invested in what?
Stocks. We came from finance. We were finance people.
So you're spitting out cash. You're putting it back into the stock market.
Yeah, we didn't. We were eating like Taco Bell bean burritos. Like we were doing CrossFit.
Kind of the FIRE model, right? Make cash, reinvest. Get out of the rat race.
It didn't exist then.
I know it didn't. It didn't.
We were not trying to live lavish lifestyles. We were products of Warren Buffett, products of investing. We had studied corporate finance. We were running a business. And so, again, this gave me a lot of opportunities later when I get into the story in regards to freedom and flexibility. But we were prudent. We didn't spend a lot And we enjoyed working and figuring it out and getting better. And then we also took time to experience life. So we weren't delaying gratification on life experiences. And we also didn't have young kids and other constraints and obligations. So it gave us a lot of flexibility and freedom that, when in hindsight, opened the door to a lot of the opportunities I was able to entertain. So we did that. I did a deal. My first deal showed up for an Italian agency. So I had a business, Trucchi Facebook and Tricks Facebook. It was the blog that had the 1 million monthly visitors. And Fabrizio, who we started that project with, was one of the friends from university days, Erasmus in Paris. He started his own agency in Rome, doing social media marketing. He was actually a thought leader, spoke on the radio and all these things in Italy. And we did a deal to assimilate the Roman team and bring what we were doing in the US to the Italian market and vice versa, because they had some skill sets we didn't have. And that was the first transaction I got really exposed to. That was 2014. Okay. We went to Italy, spent a month in Rome, met clients, met the team. And again, that's a small deal. It wasn't like it was it was more like a merger collaboration deal. But that's like the first opportunity for us to learn that we should be doing more of it. It also taught us of culture clash. Americans work differently than Italians.
You rolled that in. Did you bring that Italian entity into your entity? Did you keep separate entities? Kind of.
We made more money on the U.S. side, so we ended up just not wanting to continue to service the Italian clients, and the Italian team serviced our American clients.
Okay.
And so we were very fortunate to have a global team a few years in of extremely skilled labor. They were concerned about their accents with the American clients. Clients didn't care. They were just good. They were running Facebook advertising. They were much better than the people we had around us in the US. And we had, because of the brand Trucchi and Tricks Facebook, such a prominent thought leadership that it actually helped the agency quite a bit competitively. We looked much bigger than we were, because we could do things at a high level and make significant impacts. So that was a very important move for us. We also did a small deal with a creative agency because we didn't really do creative. That brought in a true creative director skill set. And these were like acqui-hire type structures. Again, we didn't think of them as proactive M&A. We used the mechanism of transactions to bring in that talent and bring in that client. And then we just kind of figured out how to synthesize it and synergize it. The reality hit when my wife hit me with she wasn't my wife at the time. My girlfriend, who was a business partner, I'd been with for a while, hit me with, "We're getting married at the end of 2017, or we're never getting married, and you lose a business partner." I went, "Ooh, that's a very good negotiating point." So we opted to get married. I proposed a few years before that, but we opted to get married in 2017. And the other thing my wife said to me, which was life-changing, was, "Hey, Peter, we've just worked. Like, we met, I was the president, she's vice president in Pledge Class. We worked and then made the entrepreneurship and the journey together as business partners. I'm tired. I want to take a break. This thing has been it's been doing the things we want to, but I'm exhausted. We work a lot. And we have a very full life." So we took 8 months sabbatical for our honeymoon together. The business operated without us. And so it didn't grow very much without us, but it operated without us. And that's where the M&A bug emerged quite aggressively.
Those 2 earlier deals were not, you correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like that they were born from organic conversations, a little happenstance. Hey, you've got this, I've got this. It wasn't as focused as, so I'm looking to get these skill sets. And so that which is how many of these things happen. So I'm just.
First deals. Yeah. There were small deals, so we're talking hundreds of thousands in revenue companies, small teams, less than 5. And those are typically the best first deals to have because they're able to have a higher probability of success. And so my typical disposition to the marketplace is learn doing deals as creating value together with other assets and other businesses in low risk, low consequence situations. And that's what this was. Like, we didn't do it through debt. We didn't make things complicated. We just figured it out and we paid a little bit through the performance. And this, again, I wasn't using the traditional corporate finance. This is our strategy. We're going to go out and buy this thing. We're going to go put on debt, or I have to figure out how we're going to pay for this thing. approach. I said, hey, we can make more money together. This is what this potentially looks like. And they saw the opportunity within us as much as we saw it within them. Again, that wasn't programmatic. That was opportunistic. And that's how a lot of first deals happen. But I had obsessed about, like, I read and consume SEC filings, annual reports, and I had been following a company called eMachina for many years, and they were growing through M&A. And so it was while in Greece, in the Peloponnese, we were about 7 months into the trip, like Octopus and Uzo, late night, McKinsey consultant who was working with eMachina, and eMachina was doing digital transformation. It was an agency, and they were acquiring growth, and they were agile. I was like, hey, we do a lot of those things, but I hadn't been in the mix in a while. And he was talking about how they were using like this technology arbitrage of buying inefficient creative businesses and digital businesses and then implementing Scrum and Agile. I was like, hey, we got that. The team's doing that. And I kind of like see the thought of doing more aggressive M&A and kind of saying, could we do that? And then if we're going to come back from this like retirement lifestyle we have been living, literally traveling around the world for 8 months, I want to do something significantly different and at a different scale. And that's what led to us coming back at the end of 2018 and to a mutiny when we said we're going to come in and change everything and do M&A.
So that's kind of the light bulb moment, or we were shifting this thing into second gear.
I said fourth gear.
Fourth gear, pedal down. So you're coming back, your team, they're like, haven't seen you in 8 months, and
it's been good without you. We've been fine.
And guess what, guys? I got an idea, right? Is that kind of how it went? And
that's exactly how it went. And then went pull Peter aside and say, "It's been good." And then I took the ownership seat, which was, it has been good, but it hasn't been enough. My hope was the business would grow more than it did, and it hasn't. You've stabilized. So if you don't grow, you're dying, guys. And a few folks weren't happy about that, and we had to do a change management program of saying, get the right butts in the seat for what we wanted to move forward with as a business. And 2019 became my acquisition, like the go button when I haven't stopped.
So let's talk a little. I want to hear that timeline a little. We're 2019, you're back, you're energized. We're hitting this thing hard. What did that look like in terms of how many deals? I know we were about to come up to COVID here in 2020. Walk through that timeline a little.
So I had stated the acquisition intent, and I'd put the message out to everybody. When I'm a firm believer that when you make a decision to commit to something, you should orient all things to it. So I read content, podcasts, I tell people about it, I make commitments around doing those things. I make everything kind of an external peer pressure for me to execute within the thing that I stated I wanted to do. And so my whole world just was that again. After learning travel photography and doing a whole bunch of things the previous year. And I got an opportunity. So an outbound firm based in Belgrade, Serbia, did outreach to me. And I was like, ooh, I recognize this outreach. I know Aaron Ross and predictable revenue. I know Mary Lou Tyler and predictable prospecting. I know this tactic. They're doing it really well. I took the call. And my pure intention of taking that call was to try to poach them and try to figure out if I could acquire the company, because I needed outbound within the agency itself as a way to provide value to the marketplace and add a competitive edge to the inbound and content marketing that we were doing in the agency. And I turned out doing a deal. I acquired 5 team members from a distressed asset. They were looking to sell off the business. I didn't know that. I took the call from someone reaching out to me in sales. And with that deal, I got outbound. And I didn't take them later, but I later took one of our outbound team, it's called lead gen specialists, and put them under me to do M&A outreach. Because the number one thing you can have is a pipeline. And as long as you can show up to conversations with opportunities, you can do deals. It's just people don't even do that step. So I closed on that in the summer of 2019. And then at an accounting firm, so Al Martino, who had passed not too shortly after this deal, he was servicing another agency in Ventura, California. So us and another agency and a few others. And he phones me up and says, Peter, I know you're inquisitive. I know you're interested in this. And he was kind of my mentor. He said, the owner of the acquirer of BBMD, so Barbara Brown started it, and the sales guy bought it from Barbara, committed suicide.
Wow.
The whole thing's going to evaporate. It's going to go away. There's a managing director, like an office manager there, kind of like tending to it. But if this company just reverted up to the 82-year-old parents and they're retired, their other son is a quadriplegic. They don't want to deal with this. So it's the same size as your agency. You could double but you got to be willing to jump in. I said, yeah. And so this is the talk people hear me give publicly, which is that it was a deal I did in 7 days. I called the office manager, kind of lay it land, like how bad is it? And then I called the parents and figured it out. Got all of the. Thankfully, we had a shared accounting firm, so and like that's how due diligence can be a little bit expedited. And I de-risked it with earnout, which is like I don't know what I'm going to be able to save, so I'll be able to pay you with what I keep. I have no idea who will stay. I'm going to make moves to jump in and be assertive, but this is where I learned what a motivated seller was in a distressed business, although it was doing fine financially. As like, again, situations outside of the business are influencing the reason why it needs to transact. And again, I just got exposed to that, thankfully, very early on. Flew to Ventura, California, met the team, converted them remote, brought some of the team members to help with that. And my promise in the transaction was I will wind down the company so you don't have to think about it anymore. You've got enough on your plate, parents. I will close the office. I'll wind it all down. I'll integrate them immediately. You won't have to deal with the mess. I got it.
So that definitely sounds opportunistic. You weren't necessarily seeking that one out specifically. It was a situation of circumstance, which as many of these are. Was that 100% earnout?
100% earnout.
Yep. Which I have done as well. So to people that are naysayers that say that doesn't happen, it does happen, And
then when they say that it doesn't happen frequently, I get these deals every week. The difference is whether or not your antenna or the world knows to bring them to you.
It's that motivation and that seller in a situation where it's not a question of if this is going to change hands. It has to.
It has to. And then it's timing too.
Timing.
You have to be willing to say yes. And a lot of people who I've been exposed to, it's default to no on opportunities like this because it's just too outside their comfort zone. But now I have a different relationship thanks to my upbringing with complexities and confrontation. So, I volunteered to go through a lot more challenging things in life than others choose to, which maybe leans me a little bit more favorably to do these types of deals. I don't think of it as major risk as well. I think all the future's a guess, and I feel like betting on myself, which I've done and consistently done, is the best investment I could potentially do. And so I'm very confident. And then I also know how to balance the scale of uncertainty to risk. So I've been fortunate to experience a lot of things. But that deal, after that, I said, I'm not doing anything other than this. And so that deal closed. Would it be like the first week of September? It was like a deal done in August, but first week of September was closed. I did another deal in November. I did another deal in February, not a great one, but then COVID hit. We at the time had 60 plus people spread all around the globe, did 7 figures. And I was very confident that we weren't going to reduce the team. Fully remote distributed digital agency. Shouldn't have been an issue during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And then my town hall where I hosted town halls on behalf of the company, even though I was focused on M&A, I had strategic expansion in times of turbulence. And I said, I'm going to go out and acquire more companies. And I did 3 acquisitions in 90 days during COVID without being able to travel. And so that I was just, I just went really aggressively into it.
You and I have a lot. I was doing one in COVID with people that I never met physically.
Yes, I never met them. I met them after the fact.
I was, I'm in New England. They were in Denver, and it was lots of Zooms, but I never met them, and we put that down. That one was 100% earnout as well.
Yeah, I had a few that I had to deploy capital and equity, and then most of them were a combination of performance because I was fully integrating people. And so the way I was approaching the market was as an aggregator. So I was assimilating things. I was improving those things by using our systems and efficiencies, the things I had been sparked by Imakina's implementation of Scrum, Agile, work decomposition, value-based pricing. So we did a lot of things better than others, and that if they adopted our way of doing it, our frameworks and our process, we could up-level those businesses pretty productively. And the third acquisition in that trio gave me a head of M&A. So I had a seller who said, I want to be you. I want to be doing what you're doing. And I said, thank you. I've been doing this and I'm quite tired because it was COVID. And COVID, I just took 7 calls a day with prospective agency owners. And I had an outbound team that was doing outreach on my behalf. And so I was just in front of a lot of people. And he said, well, I want to learn what you're doing. I want to be a part of that. And I was part of business buying groups. I consume everything. Like, I'm obsessed about business buying in general. I said, well, let me teach you how I'm doing it, which I think is the best of everybody's recommendations and institutional and traditional M&A and corporate business development. And let me refine it a bit. So I built the standard operating procedures. He took over the role. And then I had a book I was working on that fell flat, which was a remote book, which was not that relevant after 2020. And a scribe, Programmatic, who I was working with over there, said, well, you've been doing all this M&A stuff. That's your manuscript. That should be the project you share with the world. And I was like, I don't want to write 250 words again a day. Like, it's not fun project, guys. It's type 3 fun. And I said, well, we recommend teaching it as a course, modules or chapters, sell it so you show up to an audience, and then it will get it out of you. And so that's when I launched the first version of the agency M&A mastery class, which was my step-by-step process of how I had done the deals to date.
Was that 2021 or still 2020?
That was 2021.
Okay,
yeah, 2021. Which helped me educate Tony, who was the head of M&A now. I had a back office team now. I'd expanded. I had my own executive assistants and admins. I had HR. I had IT and accounting. And I needed to build an infrastructure to run the M&A program. And so I used kind of the education approach of building the course and the material to also help disseminate learning and development content and create standard operating procedures within our company. So it all kind of, I made a good excuse to do it. And it also got me a lot of attention. So it was the first time I had poked my head out publicly in a while. And people were talking about the amount of deal flow I was processing. I was getting introductions to people who other folks thought would be relevant to what I was experiencing. And that's what also led to the opportunity to sell and roll into Ava and launch Ava as an investment firm with 2 business partners. And that was the transition that started a whole next level of my career.
You're getting ahead. So we're 21. We've got a bunch of acquisitions. We've got outbound. You're hitting it hard. Do we have a plan for an exit? Is that where?
All of it's been planned for an exit. Yeah. All of it was expanding service offerings, getting to a certain size and critical mass so I could sell it. But when I met Felix, and in Felix I found very interesting because I wanted to do more M&A. The problem with doing more M&A is you have to digest what you eat. So I was feeling a little bit of like, okay, I want to move faster. I want to do more deals, but I need to do it in a way that my team can manage the integrations and the change management programs because I could continue at this clip. And his book, Scale at Speed, was a way of building a growth lab team to manage the growth of the business. And I felt, I could just go buy something and then have his consultants go do the growth and manage that process. I don't have to integrate. I don't have to change the religion, change the team colors. I don't have to do all that work. And so he and I kind of sparked the idea of building an investment firm where we go out and buy something and run his growth program. So that's why I actually sped up the timing of the exit, which was I wanted to go do more, but the business from a critical mass perspective, I would just continue to disrupt it by doing more M&A at the pace I wanted to do M&A. And so it just made sense to divest it and roll into another investment. Like, my whole belief is most of what I make, I just invest. So I've planned a decent enough quality of life where I feel like I've had more time with my wife and my kids than most people do who are retired. I've seen a lot of the world. I've been very fortunate of thinking about that in early stages of my career. So I'm able to reinvest things more freely. And then I've also been investing for a while. So for me, it made a lot of sense. We also, my wife and I we were expecting our first child. So starting this next thing, next child's coming. What do I want to be challenged with more? I didn't want to be the CEO anymore. Like I didn't want to be the leader of an agency anymore. I just wanted to go do more of the deals where I was getting the most excitement and most energy. That's what brought me back from sabbatical. And then I just found out I just was building a bigger company that I just didn't want to run. I needed to get it to someone else who would run it, and then I could do the things I want to do.
So you got it. So we exited 22. Is that the timing?
Oh, wait till I tell you what happened in 22. So 22 was bananas. I did an acquisition December 31st, 2021. I had already had some things in the works in regards to selling. I had been taking meetings with Felix and then another business partner to start Ava. My daughter was due March. It's supposed to be February, but floated into March. And the last deal I did was Vanessa's succession, so she could leave when I left.
Okay.
Like I needed to replace her in the business so we both could leave if we were selling two things and we were having a kid. So it was bananas. Like
wow.
I needed the paternity leave. So like that all happened within about a 3-month span. Like all of it hit at the same time. And then Vanessa took maternity, I took paternity. We had a little bit of transition, and we had launched Ava right before Valentina was born, and put the team and started putting the pieces of the back office in place to go do deal sourcing. And then I kind of stole my own M&A stuff and moved it into Ava so I could just, because it didn't need to go with it. So I put the people over there, migrated the back office, the standard operating procedures and the infrastructure that I had into the investment vehicle before divesting. So we were selling a true agency without the M&A engine. The M&A engine left with me. And then I went on paternity leave with my wife, welcomed our daughter, and the team sourced a deal that I got right on my plate. Right when I was back, they said, come back. We got this company we want to go further with. Can you jump in and run the deal for this? And that was Top Right, which we acquired. So like in a 6-month period of time, it was a new venture planning, closing an acquisition, new venture planning, baby coming, selling the business, and starting and looking at other acquisitions. And it's just a bananas. I would not want to relive 2022, but also 2022 made me so good. Like it was, I got a lot of exposure and things I had yet to get exposed to throughout even all my 12 plus years being an entrepreneur.
I was going to say, I have a sense though that you like that. So there's part of you who likes that pace. Maybe not that pace, but there's a lot of growth and a lot happening, and you're not I'm sensing a guy that sits idle a lot. So
it was fun.
Maybe that was too much.
Let's just say my health, I was always fit. My health wasn't the best at that point. And I don't mean like I was like grossly or negligently overweight. I just wasn't as fit as I normally was. So if you look at my 2022 photos, like my cheeks are a little rounder, you could tell I was giving a lot of my life energy to other things other than myself at that time. But I hadn't acquired 3 million in profit yet. So I had done small, I hadn't gone above 3 million in revenue in my acquisitions. And so for me, it was like, okay, the next phase, I just want to do bigger deals. And so coming right out of that and saying, now I just bought 3 million in profit to launch our anchor with this certain mandate that we've created and this opportunity, man, it gave me a lot of confidence. Like go surviving that and then doing that and then building the back office. Then we launched the next version of like education and the podcast and all this that this podcast genesised from. It was a fantastic time.
So Ava is that Holdco that's keeping the brands all separate, run with operators.
Effective today, we've now divested all of our assets, and we've, as of the recording of this, can disclose our sale of Top Right. And it had a very simple thesis, which was I can go source and buy businesses of all shapes and sizes. Like I knew I could go do that. I didn't want to scale them. So can we buy something, run 2i3x, which is the scale at speed, Felix's methodology on that asset, move and kind of professionalize in some capacity through back office synergies, create more value, and then divest it. So kind of be an intermediary owner, not in the traditional private equity way. So we don't have to bring in a lot of LPs, a lot of other capital. We can use our own money to do this, although we did raise a little bit to get some other participation because it was a big buy. But it wasn't the traditional private equity model. We were trying to be the intermediary to private equity or to a strategics. We helped prepare the business through our ownership for those more strategic or more sophisticated owners to be the anchor for them or to be the add-on they wish they had. And so we tested that. We got punched in the face in 23. So we had a 20 million facility that was being opened up for us. Definitive documents were being signed. The week Silicon Valley Bank went under, which let's just say took us out at the knees. We owned Top Right. We had enough deal flow with LOIs to acquire a company a month. All of that went away in February of 23. So I was not very happy in February 23. I was not needed if we weren't buying 12 companies, a company a month, but we had 20 in the pipeline. So I transitioned to non-exec. I had a team, I had a head of M&A, we had M&A associates, we had the teams that were supportive of that, we had the back office, finance and accounting, we had HR, but we had to make some reductions. We had to like change the scope of the plan. We spent a year saying, can we buy in? And like we did 5 acquisitions, the team did, but it just, it caused a little bit of friction between the partnership of saying, okay, if we're not able to execute this plan, what are we really able to execute
Right.
on? Because we had a certain timeline of experimentation. We could still deem this effort successful, although very challenging. And again, made me better. It also opened up the next phase. So I went off and did 2 half Ironmans and a marathon.
Well, there's a pivot.
So it was a very important moment. Like I thought I was building the thing that I had dreamed of building, and then it got taken from me. And so I was a little bit, distracting myself, but I was just getting my health back because 2022 was not the best health year for me. And then my wife concerningly said, what's next? Like you're not. I still had it. It still was operating. We had our assets. I still had a weekly obligation, and I still was involved to some capacity, but not operationally involved. And then I got the opportunity to buy Growth Hackers. And also Vanessa said, well, you got to get your book done, so you should update the course. And hey, that podcast that you started over in the investment firm that you no longer have the marketing team for, why don't you take that over? Why don't you keep it and do it? So she helped give me some direction and some purpose around what I could do as like the next phase. And then of course I did another version of the updated course because I was like, I learned so much in the last year and a half since 2021. I want to update it. Like I want to get this into the book. We've bought more EBITDA. We've built the back office. I created a more coherent and more documented standard operating procedures around M&A programs. We've staffed all these resources. Like I've done so much in a short amount of time. Can I put that into the course? Can I now teach that? Right? Building is one thing, teaching it's a whole nother level of mastery. And so we did. I did an update to the entire curriculum in 2023. And then right after that, I bought Growth Hackers. And that was a pivotal decision, which got to where I'm headed now into the next few years here.
And I want to keep going with that. What bring us to current, and then where you want to go future wise. But I also want to kind of ask, when did the board advisory work start kind of coming in? I'm going to guess it's somewhere in this time frame because you're now positioned as an expert, and others are thinking, I want to do this kind of thing too. So it's sort of a natural, which really resonates with the very beginning of that social media work for travel writers, right? People knew you were good at something, you're doing it, you're liking it, and these things are born from that.
Yeah, it's like of service. Like I can't come up with anything of my own. It's like I just do something well, and then I'm of service of other people. I had students I had people buying the course. Kind of, it was on demand. I had no infrastructure. I didn't have like a Facebook group, but I occasionally had people who were referred in. So I always had people sort of like dripping and buying the course. And they would say, Peter, we need help. We want to do this. Would you be open to helping us? And I said, I can't. I'm restricted in my ability to compete and operate outside of my investment firm. So I just wasn't able to as an executive. I had negotiated when I moved to non-exec that I could entertain opportunities. I could do things. You're not going to take away my ability to operate within agencies because I had other investments. I had minority investment. I had other things going on. So it was never like I had one dimension that people would deem competitive to the operating business. And so it was that. I was reaching back out to people, and a student of mine said, hey, I'm looking to sell the business. I want, actually he technically wanted to buy, but he goes, I followed what you recommended, and I took a call with a prospective buyer, and he offered me 9 times earnings, and could you help me? And at that time I had divested 3 assets. So I had exited, but I also had divested assets. So I had kind of a standard operating procedure, and my buying process is the same as selling, just in reverse. And he said, can you help me do that? And that was Get Noticed, Get Found with Mark Homer. And so I helped sell him. It took us 30 days from signed LOI for fully funded because we ran the process that I execute. And he did a wonderful job because he's one of my students. And he didn't want me to do it for him. He wanted me to help him do it so he can learn how to do that as a skill. Another student of mine reached out. He's like, well, I'm 1.3 million in revenue. I'm really good at selling. We're terrible at fulfillment. I want to go acquire. I don't know how. Can I bring you on as an advisor? I said, well, okay, this is what it would take for me to give you my attention, and this is how I can support you. And so it was very like kind of natural in some respects. And I had people ask me in the past, like, I just couldn't figure out how to make it work on my end. Because anytime I pay attention to another business or another company that's not one of my own assets, I feel like I'm not creating value on my own. So it has to be meaningful enough. So I have to have them pay enough. And then again, it started perpetuating more as I was building the brand around the book and finishing the content and making it more complete. And 2024 rolled around. I had Growth Hackers. I spent a whole year traveling mainly. I was spending time in Europe. I was bouncing around with my young family and my wife and trying to find the CEO to run Growth Hackers that I had just bought. I was failing at recruiting Darren Brandon, who's here in Austin, Texas with me. And he was pressure testing, maybe raising capital, maybe we do an acquisition together into it to run it. And so that 2014, I like to think is kind of like a write-off year. It was more like I spent a lot of time getting fitness, travel, and kind of like life orientation around the next 10-year plan. And that led to these opportunities for board advisory because people were saying, it doesn't look like you're doing much. So, can you help us? Because I still had not created the community aspect around my students. I had not provided that, even though they were asking for it. And I've had, in 2024, I had probably 150 people take the course from 2021 to 2024. And I just didn't do anything for them, really. So it was more just, again, my content, me trying to extract it from me in a way that I could perform and make relevant. And then became this role of the board advisor, which then led to me getting my head out of my butt and saying, what is that I want to do more aggressively? And I've made a statement quite broadly, which is I want to own the entire value chain of M&A. So finance and accounting services, brokerage. I want the scaling of assets. I want to have the events. I want in-person interactions. I want to be able to help support assets to a longer life cycle impact all the way to exit. And then I want to take the proceeds of our exits and then reinvest in a fund to acquire and expand as we have this great transition of wealth. So now I'm very fortunate. So going into like present day, I can, Link.
Yes.
Where the ability to systematically help founders build an M&A program to buy 1 to 5 companies a year, predictably, is in place. I just wasn't scalable. And I had a lot of folks who are students of mine or other agency coaches or other consultants who are like, many of the businesses we help are interested in selling now or want to do M&A. You have a course, great. You have 30 plus hours of M&A content, but they want done with them. They want someone on their shoulder to help them look around corners with them as they're analyzing companies or doing deals. I don't have time. I'm time starved now. And I don't say time starved, but where I put my time is very intentional and it's distributed rather diversely. And so I just don't want to add more business professional obligation to it. And the opportunity came from meeting folks like you, if you don't mind me saying.
No, I don't.
Who I was like, Link, you should be advising folks on M&A because you have experience doing this, or an agency coach who's got experience helping them scale and now have learned the M&A program. How can we help more of the agency ecosystem learn from our experience? I figured out this board advisor role that I've been doing and have had success and created great outcomes. You can do the same just by taking my course. And you all gave me feedback and said, but we would also like to do this collaboratively. And that got me excited. So I was leaning into the commitment of saying, well, what does the next year look like if there's a group of highly skilled experts who have been trained on an M&A process and have their own experience on top of that, that is invaluable to the marketplace, being deployed to transform businesses that we've been a part of in an industry that we've all been developed in. And so moving into 2026, you and a few others have joined as certified coaches of the Agency M&A and Exit program. You bring a wealth of knowledge and are available as board advisors to companies to help them do 1 to 3 deals a year. And 1 to 3 deals a year expands businesses in multiples of enterprise value. Whether they want to increase the cash flow that's coming into their personal balance sheet, or they want to exit and have an acceleration of earnings that transforms their life and then do it again and do it again, having someone who can help them run a systematic step-by-step process, which is M&A. You've done this your entire deal background. You can create those outcomes. And that got me really excited. And then saying, okay, well, in person, can we get in everyone's backyards and run labs, and can we have coaches interact with people? And then can we get everybody together for a big event and have it centered around what it is that we're doing and creating its impact? And that woke me up, Mike.
Wow,
so a big thank you to you.
Oh, well, thank you. There's 2 things in your course that stuck with me that I want to mention here. And I think they're light bulb moments if people are really paying attention. One was the analogy around, the airplane where, are you going to get on the airplane if there's only one engine working and the captain says, we only got one engine, we can get you to Hawaii. And when I I thought about that for a minute and think how many businesses across all industries, not just in our space of agencies, are relying on that one engine of organic growth. And some of them are doing fairly well with it, but there's a whole nother engine on the M&A side that no one is thinking about. And like you, once you've done it, even on a small scale, for me, it opened my eyes up like, whoa, this is a lever that I can pull that is going to be infinitely more, regardless of where. And then the second part of that is that multiple arbitrage, which is almost like the icing in the cake. Because if you're just doubling and you're going from 1 million to 2 million in a year, that's pretty darn impressive. The cash flow is going to increase, but then that comes times to exit and to go from a 2x to work yourself up to a 4 or 5x. Those are conversations that I don't think people fully understand until that light bulb goes off. And you can get that through the course. You can get that certainly from doing it. But oh my gosh, I know we're getting close on time here. One question I want to ask is, what would you say to your kids, my kids, a younger generation, let's say coming out of high school, starting to come into adulthood, in this current landscape, what you think the future holds? Because I know what I would say from an entrepreneurial perspective, but what would you tell them to read? What would you tell them to think? When I was a young person, my mind was not nearly, I didn't lift the lid. I didn't think nearly big enough for what I could do, what my potential was. And you're right, those 20s are an amazing runway and a playground for us to develop this. And you've created a lifestyle that allows for a good work-life balance. You're still excited what you're doing. Not so much your younger self, but to today's young person, what should they read? What should they do? What would be your advice?
Don't start a business. Buy one. There are more businesses owned by a generation that needs to transition out than we've ever had, and they have no one to take them. And if I'm a young person, I can become an apprentice to an owner and assume their business with higher rates of success than generations before. Vocation and time and energy into that transition will create more wealth for you and your future kids than any other startup, technology company, content creator activity. And they want you as much as you potentially would want them.
Do you think, I agree 100%, I have often thought that a young person ought to seek out, with intention, a traditional retirement age owner, whatever your industry is, and have that conversation at the onset is that I want to learn your trade. I want to learn from you. And someday I want to buy this thing or take it over from you, because the terms could be realistically very favorable, but come from a place of intention, not just I'm going to get a job in landscaping and hope that maybe someday they'll shake it loose.
Yeah, you don't say I want to work for you. You say I want to be you. The number one line that you can shift is I don't want a job. I want to be you. I want to buy the business from you. And they're like, this 17-year-old, 19-year-old, 22-year-old, 25-year-old, this 28-year-old, this 31-year-old, they're showing up on my door saying they want to buy this business from me. If you do that, you can own more businesses. And by the time you're 40, especially if you learn how to go acquire once you do own the business, you will have more professional capability and experience that you won't be fearful of any macroeconomic, any technology evolution disruption, because you know you can do it. And the shocking thing is, we need y'all. The gray hairs, y'all, they need you. They want you. They've been searching for you. They scream, we need succession. Our spouses are telling us not to die at our desk. We don't want to. We've learned that this isn't the only option for us anymore. 80-year-olds, 70-year-olds, even some 60-year-olds are trying to have someone else take the mantle of something they've spent a decade, 2 decades, 3 decades. And so I'm a big proponent of going out, becoming an apprentice, like the professional or institutional version, that's ETA, entrepreneurship through acquisition, but different than that, just even more simplistic. Like, just say I want to be you and teach me how to be you, and then invest in me over time. Because we're going back into that. When so many people have the ability to enter service businesses, create technologies with AI, the barrier to entry to a lot of the white collar opportunity is gone. And we've killed, through AI and through these large language models, entry-level jobs in white collar. My whole storyline was business class, blue collar, family business, go to university, get a white collar job, be paid for my knowledge and skills. And that's the thing we are working to remove. And what creates as a massive divide is if I can't bring in young talent because technology does that, who am I transitioning things to? And then play that out 2 decades, 3 decades. And so that's my message to young people is the amount of entrepreneurial opportunities that exist for you are much more plentiful than they've ever been. Take advantage of it.
I agree. I think a lot of wisdom right there for those that listen, and pass that on to the young people, because it's a different game now than it was when we were there, and it's great to have you encapsulate that. So thank you. What a journey.
Appreciate
Most of that I didn't know, so it truly, genuinely was fascinating for me. That's not lip service. We've
you.
walked a similar journey in some respects, and I like that.
Well, when I heard you tell your story, that's what made me reach out because it resonated, and our Venn diagram overlaps in very meaningful ways. We have some difference on the personal
Yep.
side,
Yep.
but we overlap in very energizing and meaningful ways when it comes to like the professional career experience and all. That's kind of what happens when you're around other people who have the same kind of vocation.
Hmm. Hmm.
I started web hosting for people. I started doing this. I mean, we've done the same things. Um, I was just fortunate enough to volunteer for way more challenges.
Yeah. Yep. Well, that's my whole lifting the lid. It wasn't until my stint in real estate with Keller Williams, which is based out of Austin as well. Gary
Okay.
Keller, it would always share his reading list, and you'd learn about books like Good to Great, and I just came from a small little rural town where I was thrilled to make a few $100 on a website. I never knew that I could think bigger. I could scale my time. So um, it was then that I started to think a little grander. And I think we all get pigeonholed in the little world. Plus, if our parents are just punching a W-2 and clock and, just do what everyone else does for the sake of doing it, you don't stretch your mind enough. So
Yeah.
your parents did do you a good service by having the unpredictable nature of entrepreneurialism and those trips to the bank, and there's a lot there.
They had Jim Rohn tapes on. My parents tried to learn and reinvent the wheel, and Michael Gerber's first book, E-Myth, and then E-Myth Mastery, where he disclosed how hard it was during the period of time of writing E-Myth. But I'm a student, so like I kept a reading log. I had best practices. I've been very fortunate. Stephen Covey.
Mm-hmm.
I was obsessed with Peter Drucker and efficiencies and management consulting. I've had a privilege of accelerating my own development by, learning from unofficial mentors through their books and works. And as long as you have a constant learning mentality, you'll be fine. You'll be fine in life.
Putting it into practice is the other part of that too, right? You can learn and learn, but you got to jump in the pool and start swimming at some point
That
too.
is my yeah. That I am often in the first versions of trying to entertain expansion of the course. I have friends who have courses and masterminds and different things. And the thing that was off-putting to me was people who buy those on credit cards and don't take action. And people who feel like buying the book counts as reading it. People who feel like going through some of the course material is completing it. And then you hear about some of the statistics, which is like 80 or 90% of people who buy courses don't complete those courses. We're hoarders of information, as, false talismans of education and accomplishment. And I just am so disillusioned by that. It was so hard for me because I just don't operate that way. Like I read the whole book, I write notes, I write all over the book. I take a course, I extract it, I go through it multiple times, and then I evolve the frameworks to fit me and how I can implement it. And I read everything that I do to try to do it at the highest level. So when I did triathlon, I read all the books on triathlon, on how to do if you're a time-starved triathlete, about strength training, about reducing injury, about nutrition. I learn how to do the things that I do well because I don't want to do things at a level that I'm not proud of. And for me, that has to be expressed at a almost professional level. And how I'm able to do that is I say no to a lot of other things. And so I said no to answering emails. I said no to, unnecessary meetings. I say no to a lot of things that turned me into someone who can't express the things I'm most interested in the areas that I care most about. And so that then, of course, trickles down to how I do all things. But it's important. And those are some of those other lessons that I make sure to distill in young people, which is I know what kind of person you are when I step into your house and I see what books you have. I can look at your calendar and I know how much money's in your bank.
Mhm.
I know what's struggling in your business with a 30-minute phone call. I know what's holding someone back. I've done due diligence on 3,000 plus businesses. I've been very fortunate to have great perspective, and I've also failed and been terrible at things and had to learn to get out of it more times than I've been successful. So I just decided to compress all that life experience in a short amount of time, so I have more of it on the back end. And so it's been fun.
I'm excited. I think our goals are aligned. I love your enthusiasm, and I'm glad we were able to reconnect here, and I'm ready to hit the ground running.
Thank you again, my friend.
You're
I
welcome.
appreciate it.
You're welcome.
If you like this episode, probably like one of our other episodes. Click here.